So today, my friends, I have 10 stories, and these 10 stories are not huge stories, but cumulatively they add up. And two of these are actually claims that Putin has made, and I'll track down the time and the place where he said 2 weeks, or he said he would have the borders of Donetsk, or those kind of things. Okay, here we are. First story. Western greed is going to allow Russians to kill everyone. So here's Dmitry at War translated. For the first time in almost 2 years, EU countries purchase more gas from Russia than from the US in a single quarter. From April to June, the EU bought 12.7 billion cubic meters of gas from Russia compared to 12.3 billion meters from the US. Now, it doesn't have to come from the US, but it does need to not come from Russia. I mean, you know what they're going to do with it, right? They're going to do this. Russians are going to, big story number two, completely destroy the city of Kharkiv. Well, try to at least, given that their opportunities right now, at this moment, as I'm recording, they are bombing Kharkiv. And they're going to do it tomorrow, and they'll do it the next day, and they'll do it with the proceeds from their oil and gas, and that's why this is important. Okay, big story number three. After burning for 16 days, satellite imagery of Russia's now extinguished Kavkaz oil storage complex shows extensive damage with several tanks destroyed. Here's a comparison. This is in Radio Free Europe between August 16th and September 2nd. Wow, that's burned. Fine, burned. Looks good, looks burned. Okay, you got the idea. All right, next big story. Ukraine criticizes Mongolia's failure to arrest Putin. So as you know, President Putin was going to go to Mongolia and to just a trip to talk about a pipeline through Mongolia, and it's to connect Russia and China through Mongolia. And Mongolia is a signatory to the Rome Statute. That's the ICC statute, the International Criminal Court. So if Putin lands in Mongolia, Mongolians are supposed to arrest him. I told you that wasn't going to happen. I told you that this is a test of the International Criminal Court. This is a test for Putin to thumb his nose at the rule of law, because Mongolia is not going to do it. Now, why is Mongolia not going to do it? Well, they're situated directly between Russia on one border and China on another. They don't even touch Kazakhstan. It looks close here, but they don't even touch it. They're landlocked, and all they have is Russia and China on either side. China says they're guaranteeing this, and Mongolia is not going to turn against their neighbors because, well, I mean, that could be all bad for them, and they know it. So Ukraine is rightfully upset. I'd be upset too if I was in Ukraine, but Mongolia has just been put in a difficult situation where they are a pawn of Putin's test of the rule of law with the International Criminal Court. He's poking the International Criminal Court in the eye on the easiest target possible. You notice he didn't fly to France, right? He went to Mongolia. It's a little different. Okay. Turkey has officially applied to join the BRICS. The BRICS are Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. It's a group, it's an economic bloc. Okay. I talked to someone who was like, oh no, Turkey's going to join the BRICS. This is all bad. There's nothing to worry about here. Publication writes that such a decision is due to the fact that the country wants to strengthen its global influence as well as to establish new ties outside traditional Western allies. So Turkey's part of the European sphere, part of NATO, and if they want to trade with the BRICS as well, fine, let them trade with the BRICS as well. It's no harm, no foul. They're not a military bloc, they're an economic bloc. So it's these countries plus 4 new members: Iran, United Arab Emirates, Ethiopia, and Egypt. Saudi Arabia was invited but hasn't actually done so. Turkey may. Okay, so before too long, the BRICS is going to be very weighted with Middle Eastern countries, in my estimation. But again, it's a trading bloc. It's not going to be problematic. Like it's not the former Warsaw Pact. Okay, I talked about this with Greg Terry in my last video. Actually, I was supposed to talk about Pokrovsk, and we recorded that, and then his power went out, so he couldn't upload, or he couldn't edit, and he needed to edit before uploading because we had some technical difficulties along the way. So we did a second one where he was on his phone while I was, recording on my end so he could upload it as well. But we talked about this, about internal Russian propaganda. You want to hear about this. War is the most important thing. It's a war to get into heaven in the case of defeat, to end up in the hands of the devil in hell, says a priest from the Russian Orthodox Church. And Pastor Greg and I unpack that in some detail, but I'm not going to talk about it here. You can go back to that video. Okay, this is Alexander Stubb. He is the Finnish leader, and he's saying that Ukrainian situation is better than 3 months ago. Now, he's right. Think about where they were just 3 months ago. Kharkiv was actually under assault, not Kharkiv proper, but the outskirts, Volodar, the outskirts of Kharkiv. It looked like, wow, the Russians are really attacking in force right around Kharkiv. And if Kharkiv falls, Kharkiv would be a strategic, and when I say strategic, I mean like potential game-changing end of war kind of thing. If they could take Kharkiv, if they took Kyiv, that would potentially end the war. Other things are not as strategic, even if they're in bad shape, like Bakrovsk. Kharkiv was bad, and we were really nervous about that about 3 months ago. So the Ukrainians are actually in a better position than where they were before. Okay, this is what I was talking about earlier when I said, wow, this is something crazy. This is Darth Putin, the parody account, but he's right. On this day in 2022, I said the Russian army had 2 weeks to capture the rest of Donetsk. 2 years later, 550,000 casualties. We still have not. My trolls still cope that it is going to plan. Okay, let's look at the article. It's in Newsweek. Let's look at the date, September 1st, 2022. And what do we see? Russian President Vladimir Putin has reportedly given his troops a September 15th deadline to push to the administrative borders of eastern Donetsk region in the ongoing war, according to the Ukrainian military official. Okay, here's what it looks like. This is what we're worried about, going to Bakrovsk, and this is the salient that has formed in the last like 5 months. It used to be flat here, and now they're pushing out. This is the administrative border of Donetsk. And, and 2 years ago, on this day, Putin said you had 2 weeks to take it. And how'd it go? Not so well. All right. On this day in 2014, I said I could conquer Kyiv in 2 weeks. I remain master strategist, and that was September 2nd. Well, here it is in Time magazine. And let's look at the date, September 2nd, 2014. Reports emerged Tuesday that President Vladimir Putin said he could take control of Ukraine's capital city in as little as 2 weeks. So when you trolls that are out there saying he never said 3 weeks, he never said, well, no, he did. A remark that escalated already pitched tensions between Russia and the West in the lead up to NATO's summit in Wales. Putin has made the incendiary comments in a phone conversation with European Commission President Jose Manuel Barroso. According to Barroso's account published by Italy's La Pubblica on Monday, Barroso said that he asked Putin if Russian troops had crossed into eastern Ukraine. That's not the question, Putin reportedly said, but if I wanted to, I could take Kyiv in 2 weeks. So apparently he just doesn't want to take Kyiv? That's what the trolls will say next. Okay, on this day in 1983, we shot down flight KL007. That's a Korean airline. We blamed USA and made up a lot of BS, conflicting theories, and vetoed a UN investigation. Imagine that happening today. Well, it wouldn't happen today, of course not, because, you know, the Russians are much better actors than what they were then. I mean, no, they're really not. But today does mark the Allied victory, and this was today as well, marked the Allied victory over Japan and the end of World War II. And Representative McCall says he's forever grateful to the brave service members who dedicated themselves to defending freedom and democracy across the world. We can all learn a lesson about service and sacrifice from the greatest generation. But I'm showing you this because Japan has lived in peace and freedom since they were defeated in their imperial ambitions. And until Russia is defeated and loses its imperial ambitions, we're just going to have the same old trouble in the world that we've had with Russia for centuries. So it needs to be defeated for them as well as for us. Okay, I'll leave you with this. Ukraine's place is in NATO. Do you agree? I think this is a remarkable revision to NATO's symbol. Don't you? All right, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.